أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين وبعد. We stopped last time with line 29 and we spoke about evil eye, and the Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, قال فمخبر بغير ما تظننا ثبوته يجب أن يبين عين ومن وأذى وللأذى من الوجوه كم وكائن وكذا. So he said these are prohibition of the tongue that you have to be careful and watch for. And he counted them to be: one, evil eye. This is one of, I don't want to review, because if I review, a lot of people they're not with us, in a sense, being here. But do you remember? Okay, we spoke about few things that are prohibited upon the tongue. He said, عين, evil eye. ومن, okay, ومن. ما هو المن? Man literally means that you remind someone of a favor that you have done for them in a way that you are holding it against them. So when you do something good for someone, like a sadaqah, okay, a charity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تُبْطِلُوا صَدَقَاتِكُمْ بِالْمَنِّ وَالْأَذَى. He says, do not destroy your sadaqah. Do not let your sadaqah go to waste by doing what? By doing man. So giving someone money, for example, then you keep telling him, remember the $100 I gave you? Remember when I helped you out with this? Do you remember the day that I gave you this? When I gave you a ride, you still recall that? Like always, you're always constantly reminding him of the favor that you have done for him in a way that you are holding it against him. You're just showing him that you did him a favor. That's haram. And that destroys the sadaqah. So when you give someone a sadaqah, you have to understand that you're not giving a sadaqah to the individual from you to him. He is the one who's actually doing you a favor, because when you give him sadaqah, Allah open up a door for you to do something good. So you're getting reward. So you should appreciate the poor person when giving him a sadaqah. So Allah said, لا تبطلوا صدقاتكم بالمن والأذى. He said, do not do what? Do not destroy or do not lose your reward of the sadaqah. That means in all goodness, by doing man. Okay. The reminder that an individual have, if you did it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you should never consider it again. Okay? You shouldn't consider it. Khalas. We do not have in the history of Islam that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu ardah ever told Bilal radiallahu anhu ardah that I remember I freed you. You were a slave and I freed you. Never. Okay? Umar radiallahu anhu ardah قال سيدنا وأعتق سيدنا. Our master freed our master. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq freed Bilal radiallahu anhu ardah. But never that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq went to Bilal and said, how are you? Good? Oh, mashallah. You remember the old days when I did that for you? So don't ever do that. If you did something good for someone, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if that person doesn't appreciate it, by the way. Why? Because لا يعرف لأهل الفضل الفضل إلا أهل الفضل فافعل المعروف في أهله وفي غير أهله فإن صادف أهله فهو أهله وإن لم يصادف أهله فأنت أهله. Can someone translate that? No? He said, do the good to an individual, the one that deserves and the one who don't deserve your goodness. If he deserves, then it's good for you and him. Like, what if you did something to someone that doesn't deserve the goodness you did? You deserve to be good. So you look at yourself and say, I did it for Allah, I don't care. Even if later on he says, you know what did you do for me? You never did anything. Okay? Which is the case with a lot of people. So don't let that statement ruin your reward, because the shaitan will blow into your head. And that's why hadithatul ifk, in the story of the slander of Aisha radiallahu anha wa ardaha, Mistah Mistah was Abu Bakr's nephew, and Abu Bakr used to spend on him monthly, supporting him financially. So Mistah was among the people who spoke about Aisha radiallahu anha. His mother, when she was walking out with Aisha, they're going out, and then she said, she tripped and she said, Ta'isa Mistah, may Allah destroy Mistah, or may Allah torture him or punishes him, in like a rough word. So Aisha radiallahu anha, she said to her, قالت يا أم مصطح أتدعين على رجل غزا مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بدرا وأحدا. You're making dua against someone who actually fought with the Prophet in the battle of Badr and Uhud. So she said, oh my daughter, you don't know what people are being saying about you? And Aisha said, what they've been saying? She said, they've been talking about you for a month. And she said, really? And then she told her the story. So she said, my son Mistah was among those people who also fall into, rushing, talking. You remember what we said? We ended up last time saying what? You should not speak. It's haram to do it. To speak of everything that you hear, صح? Without affirming. You're not sure of something, don't speak about it. Okay? If you're having 1% doubt, khalas, that doubt, leave it off. Don't do that. So he did speak. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, what did he do? He decided to cut him off. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayat in Surah al-Ahzab. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminded Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu to continue on to give to those who you have bestowed your favors upon them. And then he said, أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Don't you love that Allah would forgive you? So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said, yes, I love Allah's forgiveness. I want it. So he ended up giving Mistah one more time. Now, Allah said, don't you like that Allah would forgive you? He's the giver. Okay? He didn't say Allah will forgive him, even though Mistah is also forgiven because he repented. So he's reminding Abu Bakr as-Siddiq that when you do something good, you're doing something good for your own self first before anybody else. So that's man. Okay? قال من من وأذى. Adha is harm in general. So it is haram to harm someone, okay, with any type of harm, whether there is a verbal harm, physical harm. What is it? What else could it be? What other harm is there? Especially sometimes the emotional harm is more harmful than the physical. Okay? And they always say the treatment of the physical harm is a faster recovery than the treatment of an emotional harm. So be very careful of what you say, because you could say a word to someone, whether you mean it or not, and that person will be offended, and he lives his life in depression and anxiety because of your word. Then you know that they're emotional, they're stressed out, and you add on to their stress. So be very careful of every harm that you cause. Why? Because every harm that you cause for an individual, you'll be asked for in the day of judgment in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قال وكم وكائن وكذا. These are just added on. He said there's so many other things that there is more harms that you could add to the individual. قال كالهزء, like mocking or making fun of someone. Okay? So mockery is haram. Okay? Mocking the person by how he talk, how he walk, how he dress, how she dress. Mocking the person by how they look, how they behave. Any kind of mockery is haram. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا يَسْخَرْ قَوْمٌ مِّنْ قَوْمٍ عَسَىٰ أَن يَكُونُوا خَيْرًا مِّنْهُمْ وَلَا نِسَاءٌ مِّن نِسَاءٍ عَسَىٰ أَن يَكُنَّ خَيْرًا مِّنْهُنْ. He said, O you who believe, do not mock one another. Because the person that you might be mocking or making fun of, or just to make people laugh, and subhanAllah, this is another hadith. I don't know if the Shaykh is going to mention it later, I just don't recall the lines, but there's a hadith that is very scary. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever says something about a person to make people laugh, or a lie to make people laugh, then he deserves his place in hellfire, or he has reserved a spot in hellfire. I don't know if you guys, I don't know if you guys are, what is it called? If you recall, maybe you're too young. There was your mama jokes. Yeah? Remember those ones? Sahih wallah, I'm not joking. Those jokes are all slander and mocking and making fun of others. If there was Islamic ruling, these people would be lashed. But I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the wording itself, the use of itself. So you make fun of what? What are you making fun of? What are you mocking? You're mocking how the person looked, and how the person looked is not how, he did not create himself. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who created him. So what are you mocking? You're mocking how the person speaks or how he talks. Everybody has different voices. People have, some people have soft voices. Some other people have, loud voices. Like, what are you mocking? You're mocking mostly the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, عَسَىٰ أَن يَكُونُوا خَيْرًا مِّنْهُمْ, that they might be better than them. That the person you're mocking, the person you're making fun of, the person you're looking down at could be better than you in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Bilal radiallahu anhu ardah, when Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu ardah said to Bilal, Yabna al-Sawda, he said, you are a son of a black woman, or you have a black mother. He's referring to slavery, in a sense. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, you still have ignorance in you? You called him by name? How could you do that? So he went to apologize to Bilal so much, and Bilal radiallahu anhu was like, he didn't accept it for a while till the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam reconciled between them, and he tried to do so much. Why? Because you don't know how the person that you're making fun of, how is he in the sight of Allah? And there's this beautiful hadith that I always remind myself, wallahi, before anybody. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a man came, maybe you heard this hadith before, but just think about this hadith deeply. A man crossed by a group of people, and when he passed by, a person said, Wallahi, I hate him for the sake of Allah. So there was another companion sitting down. When he heard that, he ran after the man, and he said to the guy who spoke ill of his friend, he said, I'm going to go and tell him. He said, go ahead, tell him. He's my neighbor, I know him. So he ran after him and he said, you know what? This person right here, he hates you for the sake of Allah. He said, Subhanallah. Did he say that? He said, yeah. He said, okay. He took him to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at the dialogue now between him and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah, he said, Ya Rasulullah, this person said that he hates me for the sake of Allah. Ya Rasulullah, ask him, why is that? Because when you say to someone, I hate you, okay, that's okay. That's not fine. But that's okay. It's like you mean like you hate someone. Love and hate is in the hand of Allah. But when you say, I hate you for the sake of Allah, that's greater. That's more harsh. Why? Because you have evidence against this person that what the hate you carry toward him is for the religious purpose, not a personal purpose. So you have to prove to Allah that this individual is doing something that is haram, that Allah hates for sure. So when you say, I hate you, who cares? You hate me, go ahead. إنما يبكي على الحب النساء. Okay? I'm not going to translate that. Sisters are going to be very mad. So just keep it like that. I'm not going to translate it. So the Prophet ﷺ said, you hate him for the sake of Allah? He said, yeah. He said, why? قال يا رسول الله, ask him a question. Ask him a question. Ya Rasulullah. No, he said, ask him. He said, Ya Rasulullah, Wallahi, he's my neighbor and I know him the most. He only prays the 5 salah that everybody in Medina prays, the hypocrites and the believers. I don't see him praying sunnah. I don't see him praying night qiyam. I don't see him praying before fajr. I don't see him doing any of that. So he only does the salah that, and look at how their scale of, at least he's doing 5 prayers a day. What's your problem? So he said, okay, so he asked him, he said, do you do that? He said, yeah. He said, Ya Rasulullah, ask him, do I complete my prayers on time? The man said, yes. So this is the dialect now. He said, yes. He said, do I make wudu before the salah? He said, yes. He said, do I perform the salah, the pillars and the conditions correctly? He said, yes. He said, do I do anything that invalidates the salah? He said, no. He said, then what? What's your problem? He said, Ya Rasulullah, I have more. Wallahi, Ya Rasulullah, he only fasts the month of Ramadan. That everybody does. Like everybody in Medina does Ramadan. I don't see him doing Monday, Thursday, 3 days of every month. I don't see him doing Arafah. So he said, Ya Rasulullah, ask him, do I perform my Siyam in time? Do I do it from Fajr to Maghrib? Do I do it? Like the same question. He said, yes, yes, yes. He said, okay, then what? He said, Ya Rasulullah, I have one more. Wallahi, Ya Rasulullah, he only gives zakah and he never gives sadaqah. So he only gives the 2.5 of his money, but I never see him in a fundraising, for example, he never raises his hand. Okay, seriously. In a masjid, he never goes and be like, he doesn't do that. He doesn't give to the poor in this. I don't see him doing that. He said, Ya Rasulullah, do I give my zakah on time? He said, yeah. He said, do I give the right amount? He said, yes. He said, do I give to the ones who deserve? He said, yes. Then he said, then what? Do you know what the Prophet ﷺ said to the man who spoke ill about his brother? قال والله يا هذا لعله خير عند الله منك. He said, I swear by Allah that he is better in the sight of Allah than you. Now, what was the man looking for? The minimum. He wanted some, and his point was also good. But Rasulullah said, he said what? This man right here that you're looking down upon, that you're making fun of, that you think he's nobody, he is better in the sight of Allah than you. Why? Because you could bring to Allah smaller actions, but with a heart full of ikhlas and sincerity, and then you get great reward. Someone could come in the Day of Judgment with great rewards, and then zero sincerity, he loses all his reward on it. So mocking is haram, okay? And he said, and then in this ayah, there's something that the Ibn Kathir alayhi rahmatullah ta'ala mentioned. He said, يَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا يَسْخَرْ قَوْمٌ مِّن قَوْمٍ عَسَىٰ أَن يَكُونُوا خَيْرًا مِّنْهُمْ وَلَا نِسَاءٌ مِّن نِسَاءٍ. And he said, women should not mock other women that they might be better than them. I ask you a question. When Allah says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, O you who believe, He's referring to who? Both. Yes? Always in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, do this, it means men and women. Why here? Why is he saying men by themselves and women by themselves? What do you think that is? Huh? Okay, to emphasize, okay? Because every group also does it differently. The way men mock other men is different from how women mock other women. Everybody has their own style. Okay? Like you don't see a brother mocking someone's backpack. They don't do that. But on the sister side, yeah, look at her purse. Look at how, okay? You don't see, everybody has their own way. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, don't mock the way, like, you don't see a lot of, okay, sorry sisters. You don't see a lot of brothers mocking or making fun of someone's voice or how they speak. Mostly. Sisters, they do that. For sure. Okay. Today I'm going to be kicked out of the masjid. Okay, so do you understand that? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, like in the ayah, whenever the ayat divide the rule, then know that there is a difference in style. There's a difference in rulings based upon the method. Because if Allah only says, do not mock, someone could say, well, we men don't do that. Or women, we don't do that. You understand? Do not backbite. Somebody will be like, oh, it's only women, not men. Or it's only men, not women. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specified both. He said, oh men, don't do it. Oh, meaning don't do it the style you think is not mocking. And don't look at another level and say, oh, they do it differently, it's worse. There is no worse here. Both are mocking. You understand the ruling now? So both are haram? Yes, both are haram. So the Shaykh said, كالهزء. Okay. What's the next one? والترويع. الترويع is bringing fear to a person's heart. Okay? Frightening someone. And this is Abu Dawood rahimahullah ta'ala narrated on the authority of عبد الرحمن بن أبي ليلى قال حدثنا أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أنهم كانوا يسيرون مع النبي فنام رجل فانطلق بعضهم إلى حبل معه فأخذه ففزع. He said there was a person sleeping, so they took a rope from him and they ran away just to scare him. So he got up very scared. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, لا يحل للمسلم أن يروع أخاه. It is not permitted for a Muslim to scare or to bring in fear or to frighten his brother. Nowadays, we could say, this happens everywhere, but now we're at a different level now. There's prank calling. Yeah? There's, I don't know if you remember, in the 80s, they stopped the hidden camera in, it's called the hidden camera in Russia. I don't know if you guys remember that YouTube, when the guy was in the mailbox hiding, and anybody who comes to drop in mail, he'll throw it back at him. So the person doesn't know what's going on. So a person took a gun and they shot him. So they stopped that. You're like at night time, you're somewhere in the dark and your brother's walking, you get up and you scared him. That's haram. Okay? You bring in fear to the person's heart, that is haram. So we could say pranking someone is haram. Haram. There's no, why? Because you're bringing in fear to their heart. You're fooling the person. There's levels. Okay, I know of a person who actually did that with someone at the graveyard. Anyway, I don't want to scare anybody at night. No need to scare, because like for example, a person at the graveyard. If you see someone coming out of the grave, what are you going to expect? Nothing but, this guy is alive? There is no way, okay? In the old days in Egypt, they used to go to the graveyard and they used to sit there at night time, 5, 6 brothers inside the grave. You know how the graves in Egypt are? It's like a little room. It's not like a ground like the, so this, it's like a little, it's like a small dome. Okay, the inside of it, they bury like 5, 6 people. I don't know if you have that. So they used to go inside and they would just sit there and then they do dhikr and they remember the grave and all that. So one time a person he had like a little piece of wood and he put it on the ground, okay, and then he was hitting it so hard to make it still, and then he had a candle on it for them to sit. So when he did that, he actually did it on a person in thobe from the back, okay? So when they finished their gathering, they all got up, and this person is getting up, and someone is holding him back. So you could imagine what happened. He actually had a heart attack. No, he didn't run away. He had a heart attack. Okay, so he had a heart attack because there's no. And don't tell me why didn't he look down to see what's going. Come on, at that moment you don't think. So same thing. Don't scare someone at night. Don't scare someone in the dark. And that's very dangerous, by the way, for people who are possessed with jinn and all that. A lot of it has to do with fear. One of the main causes of jinn possession is fear. And if any jinn is assigned to a person to possess them, one of the moments that he enters the body of a human being to possess him is when they are in great fear. And so don't bring that to your brother's heart, and don't bring that sadness or that grief or that frightening someone. قال والتكاف. التكاف is like a word that التكاف is like to approve a mistake, okay, of someone. So don't also approve a mistake of someone and say, oh, you're right or you're okay. Haram. Yani if it's a mistake, don't admit the mistake. Just to please someone, don't tell him, oh, don't worry about it, it's just fine. What is mistake is mistake, what is good is good. قال يحرم في حضوره وغيبه في نفسه وأهله وكلبه. طيب وغير ذلك من أصناف. He said there is so many other prohibition that the Shaykh will mention it later, inshallah. It is also prohibited to harm a person in their presence or their absence, whether it has to do with the person, his family, or his dog. Why did he mention the dog? So let's talk about this first. So he said, يحرم في حضوره. It is not permissible to mention or to harm an individual while they're there or while they're absent. Like if they are there, what is that called? Huh? Slander, buhtan. What if he's absent? Backbiting. In both cases, it's haram. So he said, don't mention something bad about someone, whether they're there or they're not there. Okay? في نفسه, talking about the person, or his family, or his dog. He used the word dog to refer to the least of property. So he's telling you, if you cannot even talk about a person's dog, then therefore you don't talk about other things that belongs to him. Okay? يعني مثلا, you don't mock a person's bicycle. Seriously, you don't mock a person's car. You don't speak ill of a person's house, okay, or their apartment. It's just because you have a better house or a better apartment or a better, or even a person's shoe or a person's clothes. All of that is haram, okay, whether they're present or whether they are absent. Okay, then he said, لا بد من تحلل البنين والأب إن سقيت ذا بنين. He said, if you backbite a person and his children, we're going to talk about backbiting later, but if you backbite a person or his children, then you have to do tahallul. You ask them to forgive you, all of them. So if you say, for example, this family of so-and-so are a very bad family, and this family has 10 people, 10 members. You have to go to all 10 members and ask them to forgive you. But there's a ruling here. You don't do that. You don't do that. Why? Because if you do that, you're going to bring more hatred into their heart. Remember, sins are on 3 categories. Okay? Sins are in 3 categories. Number 1, a sin that Allah does not forgive, which is shirk. Okay, associating a partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَن يَشَاءُ. Allah doesn't forgive any person to commit shirk. طيب. A sin that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would forgive if the person forgives. That is a sin that is between you and another person. Allah would forgive that sin if that individual forgives you for it first. Why? Because the right, it only belongs to that individual. And then there's a sin between you and Allah that Allah would forgive or Allah would punish for. Now the sin between me and the individual, how do I purify myself from it? What if that individual is no longer there? What if that individual died? What if I did something wrong to someone or I wronged someone and he's no longer alive now? What can I do? You have to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a lot of istighfar and a lot of forgiveness, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could replace him in the day of judgment and compensate him with something better that will soften his heart to accept your apology in the day of judgment, because most likely they won't do that. Why? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, do you know who's a true loser? Al-muflis, someone who filed like bankruptcy, someone who's broke. Okay? قالوا يا رسول الله المفلس من ليس له دينار ولا درهم. A person who is broke is a person who doesn't have what? What do you think? Money. We all think that way. He said, no, a person who's broke is a person who comes in the day of judgment. Listen to the hadith. With so many good actions. حسنات كثيرة. A lot of good actions. So much. He did so much of good deeds. But ولكنه شتم هذا وضرب هذا وأخذ مال هذا وسب هذا واغتاب هذا. But he backbite this person and he sent rumors on that person and he lied on this person and he cursed that person and he cussed at that person and he said a bad word about this person and then he hit this person. So now what will happen? قال فيؤخذ هذا من حسناته وهذا من حسناته وهذا من حسناته حتى إذا فنيت حسناته وضع عليه من سيئاتهم فقذف بها في النار. Look at Allah is the most just. Allah will take from his good deeds to pay them. So you said something about this person, you backbite this person, okay? So you owe him 10,000 hasana. Allah will say, give me 10,000 hasana from you. So you'll give 10,000 to this person, 10,000 to that person, 10,000 to that person. You curse this person, okay? Now, what if the person is out of hasanat? Now Allah will take from their sins. So you owe him 10,000 hasana. You're going to take 5,000 sayyi'ah from him, 5,000 of his. That's a loser. because you're carrying in the day of judgment sins that are not yours. Why would you do that? It's like you're working all day so hard and then you give your money to somebody else. Is that smart? I don't think so. That's not business. Okay? Can you imagine that you're actually not just giving them your money, you're actually losing more? You're carrying on their debt. That's a true loser. So that's why it is better to keep our tongue shut before we speak of a word about an individual that will lead us to lose our reward. It is better to be silent and come in the day of judgment in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, owning no one anything. You don't owe anybody. Alhamdulillah, I don't want your hasanat and I don't want your sayyi'at. If you take from their hasanat, let them. There are people who are not going to stop. There are people who their gathering is all mocking and backbiting and rumors. And mashallah, they do it and they always say what? Astaghfirullah, we never want to say this about this sister, but let me tell you what she did. That doesn't make it halal. Wallahi, it doesn't make it halal. They slander, they mashallah, they say everything that is bad, and then at the end they're like, Astaghfirullah. We're not saying anything. What do you mean? What else can you say about her? You already took all her hasanat, you already took all her sayyi'at upon you. So that is also haram. Just because we said that, before we get to the backbiting, let's just say, what should I do if I backbite someone? Because we have to talk about backbiting as a class by itself. That's the most important thing. I believe backbiting is the most common disease among Muslims in general. You agree? Yeah? And a lot of people, when they backbite, they convince themselves that it's not backbiting. Okay? Like, I'm not sure if this is backbiting or not, but let me just tell you. And the problem with backbiting is that the person speaking and the person listening are both are partners. Because if that person who's backbiting, if he did not find an ear to listen to him, he wouldn't have done it. So what should we do? There is no hadith except one hadith about the forgiveness of backbiting. And that hadith is very weak. But there is nothing else, so we have to act upon this hadith. And this is the agreement of the ulama. When we find the weak hadith, we act upon it if there is no other evidence. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever backbite a person, then make a lot of istighfar for yourself and for him. That's why. Because going and telling him, you say to someone, not everybody has a pure heart. If you go to someone and say, Assalamu alaikum, I spoke bad about you yesterday. That person, even if I'm just gonna give you an example of a good-hearted person. If he says, okay, may Allah forgive you, he's gonna go home and the shaitan is gonna tell him, what did he say? And you're like, yeah, what did he say about me? Or what he said was, he didn't tell me everything. I am sure he said more than that. You know, I think he didn't do. Then the shaitan will fill your heart with hatred toward the person. So that's why we don't tell him. 1. 2, there's another thing you could do. If you backbite someone at a gathering and you're able to fix it in the same gathering that you were in, then do so. Like you come to this gathering and say, you know what, guys, I spoke about this person, this sister, this brother yesterday, and I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. You know, I apologize. And this person, la wallahi, what I said about him is not true. Or what I said about him, I should not have said it. So please forgive me. If anybody ever speaks of that person based on what I said, I am already freeing myself from it. It's haram. That's the only way to do that. Other than that, then good luck. Because he will hold you responsible in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب, we'll take one more line and then we'll stop inshallah. قال ونث سره وجس خبره ومدحه إلا Okay, we'll just stop there. Okay. وَنَثُّ سِرِّهِ, he said it's prohibited, okay, to expose someone's secret. The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, إِذَا حَدَّثَ الرَّجُلُ بِالْكَلِمَةِ ثُمَّ الْتَفَتْ. If a person is telling you something and they're looking around, فَهِيَ أَمَانَةٌ, it's a trust. Like he doesn't want anyone to hear it. He's like looking, making sure no one is listening. So it's a trust. Trust means what? Mean you are trusted with what he has told you, therefore you should not expose that secret regardless. Not to your wife, not to your husband, not to your children, not to your friend, not to your roommate, nobody. So exposing a person's secret, and that's why, remember what we said about a secret last time? We said if a secret goes out of two, it is not a secret no more. And if a person could keep his own secret in his heart, then it's better than exposing his own secret to someone that they can't trust. And the best time to test a person with a secret is at a time of friendship or enmity. What do you think? Enmity, hatred. Because your friend is your friend. They won't say anything because they're friend. As soon as they start hating you or they start complaining about something, boom. Or they threat you with the secret that they know about you. Let me tell you, if you have a friend like that, just don't be a friend with that person. If you cannot feel free to tell someone something knowing that they're not going to tell any person, then don't be a friend with that person. If they cannot be trusted with your secret, they cannot be trusted. And the same hand, if a friend of yours, very important, if a friend of yours is telling you other people's secrets, then also be careful. Why? Because they're gonna be telling them your secret. Okay? This is how this business runs. خلاص؟ قال وبث وجس خبري. It is also haram to do tajassus. Tajassus is to spy on someone, okay? To spy on someone to expose his sins or his mistake. Spying is haram, and nowadays, let's be a little realistic with spying, because I see that all the time. Spying is either by vision, by listening, by trying to investigate. And all three is haram. قال الله عز وجل ولا تجسسوا. Do not spy on one another. The ruling of spying with the eye is that you poke this person's eye without a torture or a punishment on you. So nowadays, you know how it is. I travel a lot, mashallah. Okay? Sometime I have my phone. The person next to you, literally, not their eyes, their face is on. Sometimes you just want to give them the phone and be like, here you go, you want to edit something, like, you want to check my message and let me know. I can't even read it myself because I have a screen protector. So if I tilt it this way, I can't see myself. I have to do that. So I'll just give it to him to read it, then he'll let me know. Islamically, if a person looks in your phone, even a husband and a wife, by the way, if a person looks in your phone without a permission and you poke their eye, there is no compensation, there is no ransom. The Prophet ﷺ, when he saw a man looking into his house from the window, he said, if I knew that you were looking, I would have poked your eye. And then there will be no ransom for you, no fidya. So same thing, listening. If you have a roommate, because I know a lot of you guys are roommates, okay? MashaAllah, you don't put your ear on the door to listen to what the sisters, like she's on the phone or he's on the phone or they're talking to someone inside the room. You're like, let me just check just to make sure they're still alive. Don't worry about them. When they die, you'll know. Don't ever do that. That's haram. Okay? Spying on a person by investigating. Going after a person. And listen to this hadith. Wallahi, this hadith is very scary. Wallahi. يقول النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم من تتبع عورة امرئ مؤمن. Whoever follows or investigates to find or to expose a awra, meaning a sin or a mistake of a believing man or women, تتبع الله عورته وفضحه في قعر داره. Allah will follow his sins and Allah will expose him in his own house. If you try to follow, and nowadays, mashallah, with the phone, it becomes, now with social media, you're trying to follow everything that somebody says something about someone, you mashallah, You want to know what happened, who said it, what did they say, what did they do? Don't try to follow a sin of a Muslim to expose with the intention of exposing them. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be, the torture is that Allah would expose the individual in his own house. So if you're exposed in your own house, that means you're going to be exposed everywhere else. وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا. Do not spy on one another. Do not take someone's phone. Okay, let me just read what... and now I have to read the phone, but nobody's looking. طيب. Bismillah. Any question now? We'll stop here, inshallah, and then... we'll stop here, inshallah. We'll continue next week with the rest of the prohibition of the tongue. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our heart and our tongues. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us steadfast upon the truth. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala release the hardship of our brothers and sisters in Gaza. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthen their hearts and keep them and give them comfort and give them victory. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow His mercy and His forgiveness upon them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect them from all harm. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon the ones who have passed away and consider them among the shuhada and the salihin. Protect their children and their homes and their souls and their lives. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep them upon the, strengthen their hearts to be upon the straight path till the time they return to Him, and make us among those who give them support and victory with our dua and our support. Allahumma ameen. Do not forget your brothers and sisters in your dua daily, wallahi. They need it so much. And we have seen the hardship and the struggle that they're going through. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with His victory and His power to be their supporter. Because if they have Allah's support, they have everything and they don't need anyone else. But we have to play part of it. Because in the Day of Judgment, we want to be excused in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this is the least we could do, which is the weakness today is the dua, even though it's the most powerful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But to the individual, it is something that we feel weak. Hold on to it and keep your heart, inshallah, firm upon it. Jazakumullah khair wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Alhamdulillah.